I have to call?
Excuse me, can you speak up? Because we can't hear you in the back.
Testing one,
So
two.
do I?
Now it's on. We're working.
Will it be a need to make a call?
We were just approving the minutes.
In minutes, and do I need to do a vote on it? Nope, just as long as they're approved.
I'm sorry, are you asking me?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I am
So
asking you.
typically, you guys just approve them, vote however you normally do.
Okay, so I'm just saying, no need to call if Ms. Gaskins made a motion.
Because you typically don't vote at these meetings.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, well, that works for me. I just wanted to make sure that we got the minutes approved. And with that being said, I am going to yield the rest of community recreation development time over to budget and finance.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. All righty, let's begin the Budget and Finance Official Committee meeting. Did everybody have time to review the agenda today? All right, I'm going to be using my timer to set time limits on certain things so we can keep moving forward so we don't get caught up and get behind. We have a lot of work to do. We will be starting with the October monthly report, and I will be yielding that to Ms. Anderson, and Ms. Anderson will allow 10 minutes of time for that.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have prepared 2 months for you on the end of month balancing of the finance software and the bank report, the bank statement. If we'll start with October, and typically what we do is we take the beginning balance, what is reported in the finance software and what is reported on the bank statement. We take into account all of the receipts received for the month, as well as all of the expenses. Step 1 shows all of the revenues, Step 2 shows all of the expenses, and then you'll need to take into consideration that there are encumbrances against the expenses. And at the very bottom, step number 4, you'll see that the bank balances to the funds, the software. Both year-to-date and both month-to-date for the month of October. Same thing for the month of November. I've also included for your review all of the checks that were written in both months so that you're able to see what was actually paid. Now, I don't usually give details of the receipts or revenues, but you do get an idea from what is actually paid out each month.
Ms. Anderson, you said we have the checks?
So that would have been in your email. I
okay.
actually only printed for you the top copy.
Okay, awesome.
But
That's
but your email contains all of the checks.
Thank you. Wanted for clarification. All right. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Were you done with the November monthly report?
I am.
All righty, we have some time for questions. Is there any council members that have any questions about the monthly reports? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Madam Chair,
Did you say something?
I did. I kind of swallowed it, but yes, Madam Chair. Sorry. Say it clear.
Ms. Orb, go ahead.
Ms. Anderson, so I'm presuming that the number in step 4 is total of all funds, is that?
That is correct.
Okay. How do we get a breakdown of each fund? Can we get that?
So a breakdown would be a report, and it would be called a combined report, where you will have the beginning balance of revenue, and then it will show a column for year-to-date or month-to-date. expenses and revenues, and then it'll give you a balance, and it'll also show you what's encumbered. But this doesn't break it down by fund.
I understand that. I'm asking, can we get that?
Why? Why do you need
It's
it?
a whole nother report, Ms. Orr. No, I was just letting you know, that's not the monthly report.
It's not
That's-
part of the monthly.
It's not part of the
report.
monthly report. If you're asking for it separately, that's fine, but I just would like to understand why you need it. I mean, this is the monthly report that we're obligated to give on a monthly basis.
I don't understand why you're arguing the point. I'm just asking for a report. I don't
No, I'm more than
understand why
happy to
it's,
give you a
why I have
report.
to justify it.
It's just that it's not part of a monthly report. A monthly report shows you
And that's what we're
expenses
working
and-
on right now. So that's why I'm asking why, because we're working on and I'm not trying to jump you. I just.
It felt
we're-
like it.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Ms. Orr.
that's not what my intent was. It's just that we have a lot to take care of today. And this is a monthly report. We have 2 of them, plus the budget, plus the cleanup ordinance, plus the salary ordinance. And so,
So to be clear, I'm not asking for this to just spontaneously be produced right now. I'm asking for it in the future. Can that be done in the future?
yes.
Thank you.
So to clarify, Ms.
Right.
Orr,
I
are
want to
we
know if
asking?
if you want that part of the monthly report. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
No, she doesn't, she's asking it, can she be provided it,
Okay.
not about the part of the monthly report. She's just asking, like randomly.
Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't, but that's,
Well, when I
Madam
asked
Chair.
why, I don't know what to.
Ms., yeah, give me just a second, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Zor, I just want to see what for clarification for the October and November monthly report. You want included a breakdown. Is that what you're asking for?
that is exactly what I'm asking.
Okay, so,
No, we will not be providing that as a part of the monthly report.
Okay.
What we have provided here is
No,
the monthly
sweetie, these are
report. If
mine.
Ms. Zor would like the breakdown of
Do
each,
not.
part of it, Ms. Anderson does not, I don't have any issue with her providing that report. But this monthly report is what we are supposed to be looking at and you guys are supposed to be digging into. If you want other things,
No.
both of us are more than happy to provide it, but in the midst of the monthly report, no, not
Right.
that.
I'm happy with the report as is, but I was just trying to get a clear understanding of what Ms. Zor was looking for. But that's not something like you said, we don't have time for today. So we got 3 minutes left on the timer for the monthly report.
Madam Chair.
I believe or is it relates to the same topic, or is
It does.
Go ahead, Ms. Zor.
I would just like to point out that Ms. Dukestein even said, council was supposed to dig into this, and without that additional report, it's, this number, this 16 million says nothing. That's-
And that's
So
fine if
that's
you.
why I'm asking for the additional information so that we can dig into it.
Yeah, but we just can't do it,
Tonight.
yes.
And- Understood.
So the ask is,
We'll
to-
follow up with it, yes.
thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Go ahead. Go ahead, continue. She answered my question.
Awesome. All right, next on the agenda is the 2025 budget review. I am setting the timer. We have 60 minutes to review this. We will be starting with the police changes only. We will be discussing just the changes we needed to talk about from the last meeting. Ms. Anderson, do you want to give an update on the line items that we were discussing? That we made amendments to? I'll give her a moment. The TV's not on.
Sorry. What's that?
Are you trying to pull it up on the screen?
I am.
Okay. You need help?
Yeah, what's going on with the screen?
I don't
It's
know.
not on, you have to plug up to it.
Right behind, right in front of you.
It was just on 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, but it had cut off on the.
I did not make,
There are copies made.
What, there's
There
one.
are.
Already been distributed.
I thought they might have,
One
It's
at Ms.
already been
Underwood's desk.
distributed.
here, I have one for her.
Okay.
Pass that. That's Mike's.
Yeah.
He's not here.
Okay, just wanted to revisit the police officers.
Please speak into the microphone.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear me better?
Yes. thank you.
Okay, so there are a couple changes that were made. I know that we went over the police department's budget in detail, but there were just a couple changes that were made I'd like to bring to your attention. So for the salaries, full-time salaries clerical, that line item was actually changed by Chief Cheney. I think the only other change that was made
There's a couple.
was to the police levy fund. That went down to $200,000. And then the training budget, the training and education went up to $16,000. Where we're able to add the 18th officer is now going back to the general fund. So it was taken off of the police levy and put back onto the general fund utilizing the ARPA reimbursements. And those are all the only changes that were made. If you have any questions about the police department budget, you can let me know, or otherwise I'll move on.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Lord.
Ms. Anderson, I heard you say that you changed the police levy fund to 200,000. Can you tell me specifically what line? 'Cause I'm not finding it.
It
That's
is
that
line,
301.
Department 301,
Yeah,
Police Levy Fund,
yeah,
the very first line.
it's 250.
I just said that there are some changes that were made from the time that we sent these out to you.
That was
So
in the
we're highlighting the changes that were made by the department head
Mhm.
on the budget. Actually, I made the change to the salaries. However, there was $16,000 of an ask on the training and the education line, and then the $200,000 was adjusted from 250 down to 200, and then it's put it back onto the general fund using ARPA funds,
Took off
Okay.
reimbursed funds.
So,
15.
Madam Chairperson? So the training and education line is now, that's now 30, it's back to 36,000 now?
No, 16,
Okay, so.
16,000.
So instead of 20, it's 16.
Yes, she
Correct.
took it down.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Chief.
we actually have two training lines. We have one in general fund and one in the levy fund. We upped the
Yes.
levy fund training from 6 to 16.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that is when we solidify our command staff, everybody in the command staff is going to go to FBI LEADA training, which is about $800 a class. So by the time we send everybody, it'll eat up majority of that fund. And then we will be FBI LEADA certified as a agency for leadership.
Okay, so, so the
Madam-
general fund
so-
will stay as is, and the 301 goes to 16.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Madam Mayor, yes.
for clarification, I
I was
just
just-
want to make sure that we're referring to 301, 101, 523, 450. to
Repeat the
16.
523.
I'm sorry.
Repeat the last 6 numbers. What'd you say, 523?
450.
450. So instead of it
That's
being-
correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And
That's the line that changed from 6,000 to 16,000.
And that, under the same department, instead of $250,000, it should be 200,000.
Correct.
Mhm.
This is so that there is still a surplus of $6,000, well over $6,000 on the levy.
Yeah.
For this year. No, we're not talking about carryovers.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
now, it was my understanding you made these changes so we can, in order to be able to add
The 18th
the
officer.
18th officer.
Correct.
So that's why the cuts were made, so that we can, if we had to do one or the other, basically.
Correct.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Chief Cheney?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You look like you were a little worried. I was just like.
Oh, no,
Wanted to
no,
make
I'm
sure
good.
you, okay.
Okay?
All right.
That concludes the budget for the police department. Yes?
If you don't mind, I did bring an answer to Mr. Davis's question. At the last meeting, he had a question on a line item, on what we had
Can you
spent out of it. It was,
Which line item, sir?
hold on one second, I'm sorry. It was the professional services line item,
Can you give me a number?
101, 101, 523, 400. Mr. Davis asked what we had used that for in the past.
Okay.
So I was able to do the research. So
Wait a minute. Repeat that one again.
I was able to do the research for,
What was the number on it?
Oh, the line item, sir?
Line item number.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
523 400.
Yeah.
yes, 523, 400.
I have it highlighted on the board, on the screen.
She has it up on the screen
got
too
it.
as well.
Thank you.
So the majority of that goes to our cleaning service. It's $1,175 a month. And then we also have a reoccurring TLO that comes out of that as well.
Okay.
TLO is a investigative tool that we use for investigators. And then we also now, like the city did, we went to earth recycling or shredding. So they do all our shredding now for us instead of buying a new shredder every single year. We use them. That's like $45 a month. So those three things will encompass that account.
Okay, dig it. Gotcha.
Any other questions for the police budget? Nope. Okay, Ms. Janetta, let's move on.
All right, I'd like to draw your attention to Public Works.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was looking for numbers comparing.
Okay, go ahead.
I know we had some questions about the debit service equipment, and they said they were going to get like some lease info. That was the 101, 101, 525, 300, and it was like some blank spaces there. I have it highlighted, like it went from 105, 224 actual, and then there was nothing, and then I have a note says, "We'll get info."
Okay,
Is
so
that something about a lease, or?
Which
it's
one,
like
ma'am? I'm sorry.
Oh, the debt services
Yeah,
line
the debt
items?
services
Yeah,
equipment.
we did talk about those. I thought we had it.
So I did get you some information on that. 525, 300 is the body and flock cameras,
Okay,
the Lexipol policy manual in 2024. And then for the 200, that was the purchase of 2 Durangos and their decals. And the purchase, and for 2025 is the same, where there will be 2 additional purchases.
okay.
Someone had a question about lease,
Yeah.
interest payment, which was on 527,499. We did not make any interest payments on any principal payments.
And there's no 2025 recommendation? Is that why that's?
That's
blank?
correct, because
Okay.
we will be purchasing the 2 new vehicles outright.
Okay,
All right,
that's it. Thank you.
let's move on to Public Works. I'm sorry, yes, Public Works.
Public Works, we'll start with the very first line, which is the full-time professional salaries line. They negotiated a new MOU, and it was decided at that time that some of the ARPA funds would be earmarked for, actually, a great deal of the ARPA funds is being earmarked. As you can see, of the 275,000 that was asked,
What page is
I'm
Trying to find it.
Yeah,
We're
we
still
can
here trying
find
to
it.
find what page it's on.
We're all in.
we're on Public Works.
Order, so that we don't get
We didn't go in order because we wanted to get the small ones.
Got it.
What does it say?
I still don't see it.
Public Works. I don't know what page number that would be, but
I see law director,
Mayor's Court.
mayor,
It's toward the back, hold up.
service.
it's gonna be service, yeah.
Okay, I think I found it.
Where you feel like you found it at? I'm still
It
bumming.
has the green
Okay,
highlight.
201,
'Cause I see it.
is that
Correct,
Department 201?
correct,
Is right before the street levy.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right,
Apologies.
no problem, a lot of pages.
Oh, there we go.
I do want to draw your attention to the 2024 actual on salaries. There was some retro pay and a pay increase on that, received by the by the
Public Works.
Public Works. So the actual is quite elevated. The 275 is closer to the actual of what it should be had that not occurred within their department. And the 300,000 is on par with their salaries. And as I said before, it is a heavy portion will be is allocated from the ARPA funds on that. After that, as you all voted on with the MOU, there's some restrictions that will be made in order to keep their salaries within budget.
Not the MOU, sorry, Madam Chair.
What'd you say? She said MOU and it's not the MOU.
It's just a bargaining agreement for, this is their regular contract.
Oh,
MOU
okay.
is for
That's right.
firefighters.
That's right.
That's what
Thank
I was
you.
thinking, that was just there.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Orban?
Ms. Anderson, can you help me understand why their medical insurance went from 58,000 to 5,000?
Is there a missing number?
About the seventh line, it's 201, 201, 521, 210.
You said 521210?
Medical insurance.
521, 210, yes.
I think that's,
Is it a mistype, like a typo?
Yeah, missing it.
yeah, because on the old one, it got 65,000.
Missing the 6.
It's missing the 6 on the new one.
Missing something.
Which number?
The medical insurance on Public Works.
Yeah, it looks like it's
It's just missing the
6.
six.
Just missing the
65,000
6.
instead of 6,000.
So it's 56,000?
65.
65,000, my bad, 65, 1, 2, 3, okay.
It's a typo.
So that just needs to be updated? Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want to mark that, or you can change it now.
I just changed it and I'm going to highlight it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so you've gone down a little bit further than than I've gotten to. Is there any other questions that you might have on that? Do we need to go line by line?
I think everybody reviewed it ahead of time. Does anybody have any questions about the Public Works portion of the budget?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
okay.
Ms.
So as we're going to be hiring, as we're likely going to be hiring new there, does that salary need to be adjusted in order? Does that need to be adjusted to compensate for the fact that we got to hire a new director in there?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Dukes.
You guys can address that on the salary ordinance that you'll be reviewing later.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Brown?
I did have highlighted, can we look at the gas and electric? The actual is 48, but then the recommended, I just want to get clarification.
No, go ahead.
So if you'll notice that the cleanup ordinance, that's an error. That was paid out of their line when it shouldn't have. The actual is correct,
Okay.
but it should not have been paid out of that line.
Does that affect the budget?
So the budget is going to, we're actually reflecting more closely to the 2023 number
Okay.
on that, which should not be anywhere near that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Orr?
So for clarification, does this just cover their building that's like
Correct.
behind the 1500 building?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Alexander?
In that next line, with the cell phones, I see in the old one, it didn't have anything, and this one is reflecting 500. Is that the accurate number that it should be?
So the 500 is an estimate, and it's based on the $122 actual. They actually have 2 cell phones now in the Public Works Department, so $500 should cover it for the year.
Any other questions for the Public Works?
Madam Chair, I do.
Go ahead, Ms. Orr.
Ms. Anderson, what does the street cleaning / snow cover? Is that salt, or what is that?
What line, please?
523514.
Yes, that's their salt line.
We got 2 minutes left on Public Works. Any more questions?
Now, why the cuts for the landscaping materials and things of that nature?
That's a good question, because we've taken some of that number and we put it onto the general fund. So when we get to finance, you'll see that the general fund has absorbed some of that.
Okay.
All right. 30 seconds on Public Works. Any more questions? Nope. All right, Ms. Anderson, we can move on to the Fire Department.
Is everyone there?
Everybody here? Very good. All right. Set the timer. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
We will begin with the part-time firefighters line, which is 101, 102. That entire fund is for the part-time firefighters. If you draw your attention to part-time firefighters salary line, which is the 521,120, the actual being 285,058.68, does include all part-time firefighters and the fire chief.
And Madam Chair,
Ms. Dukes.
and the lieutenant.
And the lieutenant, yes, absolutely, thank you. The proposed amount was for $665,000. We took it down to $482,000, which will include some of the ARPA reimbursements.
That's that 14.5%.
And the 14.5%. So the amount that's in there covers all of the salaries plus 14.5%. Thank you for that.
I do have a question. So that line item that you recommended, 482,
Yeah,
that covers fire chief salaries,
fire chief,
2 deputy chief salaries, and what else?
everyone who's part-time. I didn't divide it by title.
Okay, because that figure might be a little low because
Well,
that
what
looks
you
like
see-
that figure that's like one part-timer per day. And my thought is that if full-timers take off, we backfill with part-time, that's going to up that cost. So essentially, we would have 2 part-timers working per that day. So it's going to drive that cost up a little bit. That's why
we added the 14.5%. As you can see that the actuals is a little under $300,000. With the additional funds, should be able to sustain the department from the general fund.
So that actual, that looks like what it costs for 1 part-time firefighter per day.
I pulled data from Paycor. Everything that was earned from January up until the date that this was pulled is what is included in that amount. That's everyone's salary from January to date, from Paycor, not from the finance software.
I understand that. I have a personnel calculator that I use, and that looks exactly the same as 1 part-time position.
So one part-time position makes
Per day.
$285,000 a year?
If you look at 365 days a year, 1 part-time slot, that looks like it's that cost. I can confirm that.
$285,000 for one part-timer?
Wrong job.
Right.
No. I'm talking about like 1 slot per day.
I'm missing the deal.
That's not one person making that. That is over the. We have.
Still in the wrong job.
They're hired.
Chief Black. Do you,
Madam Chair,
Oh, go
I'm sorry.
ahead, Madam President. No,
I just had
Madam
a
Mayor.
question, Chief Blackie. Just so I can understand, are you saying you're looking for 2 part-timers per day?
That's what's-
The model that we're trying to do is 4 full-time with 1 part-time per day.
Can you repeat that for me again? I'm sorry, I didn't.
4 full-time,
Mm-hmm,
1 part-time
for 24 hours.
for 24 hours.
Is that what you currently have?
No, we're in process of trying to hire more full-time staff. So we're trying to get to that point.
So, to be fair, she probably ran the numbers off what our staffing is now, and you're needing to hire how many, what FTEs are you trying to hire now? Is it full-time, part-time?
We're trying to hire full-time.
1 full-time, 2 full-time?
No, we actually have 3 vacancies.
So we only have 1 full-time right now?
No, we need to hire 3 additional people.
So additional, so we need to hire 3 additional full-time fire department.
We have a hiring process going on right now where we have 3 vacancies that need to be filled.
Okay.
They're not additional, so I'm going to make that
They're
correction.
vacancies.
They're
Okay.
vacancies.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Dukestein.
and so the 3 vacancies that you're filling are, what is their distinction between part-time and full-time?
So there should be 3 full-time spots that we're trying to fill.
Okay, so if that's true, the actual for 1 part-time for 365 days a year last year was $285,058.68. It's been upped to the $482,000. That still leaves room to hire for another part-time, not necessarily at 365 additional days, but for sure, there's definitely another $200,000 in there for another part-time person. And you're saying that still is not enough to create another part-time person there?
I'm going to have to look at this because I didn't receive this copy until I came tonight.
That's not an issue. I actually talked to Mr. I don't really want to speak to audience things, but if you're gonna, let's just deal with that. Because I actually talked to Chief Plackey before we got here to make sure I told them that there were things that we would be working through beforehand. The budget is still a rolling document. We're still making improvements. That's what these meetings are for, to have a conversation, to talk about them, to get it right. It has not been made legislation. That's why they have draft on them. We go through several processes of looking over the budget, making sure the numbers is right, different things that the chiefs and have thought of and the department heads have thought of as time goes on. And they're just like Chief Cheney, I don't know if you were here, Ms. Kirtan, but it's not, that's fine, but I'm addressing.
I'm here as an audience. Don't address me. Address Chief Plackey and the council.
Ms.
So
Kirtan.
what we do is we continue to revise the budget over and over and over again. So Chief Cheney reached out to me this week to talk about his training needs, and we made those adjustments. So I just want you guys to keep in mind that the document is just constantly changing, and that's why we're here. That's why we're in these meetings, to make sure that they're right, which is why I was asking them, like, hey, is this going to be enough for your part-time person that you're hoping for?
Madam Chair.
Chair. Just a second, Ms. Kirtan. Let's not make the,
I didn't simply say, I didn't say it. I said,
we cannot have any disruptions. We have a full agenda. I'm sorry, I can't. It's disruptive.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so let me break it down a little bit more. I don't have the actual calculator with me, but that 285 number for part-time salaries, that's not take-home. Portion of that is what comes home on your paycheck. The rest of it is the benefits that come along with it. Social Security, Medicare, FICA tax, all that stuff is added into that line item.
Now, there's a
So what you
separate
see
line.
there is, like, it's not $285 going into somebody's pocket. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that's why she has the FICA line item and Medicare line item, the FICA Medicare line item on the different, in the medical insurance. So those are, Ms. Anderson, correct me if I'm wrong, those are taking in an account with that, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a question down here, I'm not sure which one of you guys.
It was me. I'm just trying to figure out, Chief Plackey, your statement was that the line item did not cover the 3 positions that you had. Ms. Dukestein asked you, what were the positions, the 3 positions that you were hiring, that you're currently doing the process for hiring for, and you didn't answer it. I was trying to figure out what it was, or did I miss the
We're hiring
answer?
3 full-time people.
3 full-time individuals.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Alexander, I thought I heard you start to say something.
I didn't got caught up and I don't even remember anymore. I'm sorry.
It was me.
Oh, Ms. Thorpe.
So for council's benefit, I just want to make this clarification. So right now, we're talking about the general fund money, and that's where the part-time salaries live. When we get to the levy money, that's where the full-time salaries live. So they're not even in the same bucket.
Okay.
Just, she has the note there on the side,
Right.
the 2024 ARPA reimbursement.
But I did want to ask Chief Plackey. I'm trying to,
This is part-time, full-time.
I
staff.
understand that, but I don't have 2024 ARPA reimbursements, and it looks like it was whited out on my copy.
Well, I don't have a number either. I just wrote it. ARPA reimbursements. There's no number.
Those were for 2.5 full-time positions, not part-time.
Are they designated for full-time?
Yep.
Or are they just for firefighters in general?
They're 2.5 full-time positions.
Okay, all right, we can put that down there.
So is it 2.5 for 2.5 or 3?
2.5 positions.
for the ARPA funds.
Oh, okay.
But Chief, may I make up, I'm trying to understand something here. So you stated that your calculator thingy for one part-time person, 365, 24 hours, is comes out to around 285 a year, right?
I'm gonna check on that. That number looks very familiar.
Okay.
I don't have it with me, but I will get back to you on that.
So, and
can't
thank you,
dispute
but the point where I'm trying to get to is, I also heard that the fire chief and 2 deputy chiefs are also in that same line, because those positions are also part-time.
Yes.
So I guess where I'm going with that is, do you, out of those, the full-time, the chief and the 2 deputy chiefs, out of those 3 people, are one of those always on duty?
We work,
Or do they fall into the 4 that you staff?
no, they're not included in the daily staffing.
Okay. So, thank you, that helped me. So I guess my ultimate point is that just because that 285 is for one part-time person, that doesn't include any of the, I'm gonna call them the management roles.
Any of the, none of the
So,
admin.
so none of those are even in that 285 number.
Madam Chair,
So that would take a whole nother, probably more than 285, because they would make more, right?
Madam Chair,
Hold on
I'm
one second.
sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I have to reiterate that that is a number straight from Paycor of all part-time firefighters to date.
Madam Mayor?
That was going to be my question. I was going to ask, because from my understanding, this number is based on actual, what
Correct.
was paid to the part-time firefighters
Part-time firefighters.
thus
correct.
far this year.
Correct.
The number of
24
the
actual.
$285,058.68.
That is correct.
Up till
Okay.
when you ran the report, was it
Yes.
in December?
It
or-
was this week,
This
or
week.
the end of last week. I should
Thank
say.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, you're fine.
Can you roughly, if you know, can you tell us individually what one would get paid? So let's say if I have 6 out of that 285, because if you're saying that's for all of them, my other question on top of that, does that include the administrative? The chief and the,
That is correct. We pulled all salaries for anyone who was classified as a part-time firefighter, whether that was a fire chief, deputy chief, whoever it was, that's in that number. Now, I don't have memorized what their salaries are in terms of what, one individual person would have made.
thank you.
Any more questions on debt? We only got to salaries.
And we also have, I do want to bring to your attention that there's another $120,000 and $379 in the overtime column also for part-timers.
Yeah, so, and
Not
we'll-
on my copy.
Not on mine either.
yeah, that's not in the
2024
recommenda- it's not
actual.
listed for the recommendation.
120.
Yeah, 120, 379, 2024 actual.
Up under it,
So it's
Right
the
up under the
52,
285.
1140.
52, 1140.
Right, but none in the recommended is.
Yeah.
I thought that's what she was referring to.
So, Madam Chair, so,
Mr. Davis?
we wouldn't budget for any overtime for next year, or?
I'm sorry. Mr. If we're actually fully staffed, then the ideal would be fully staffed and we wouldn't need it because every shift would be covered. And then that would, if we do have some overtime, then it would probably fall under incidental, something.
That's,
Did you propose overtime?
No?
no, the overtime calculation, that it's figured into that. So
So what was your recommendation for the overtime line?
He said he figured it in his number.
yeah.
Okay, so-
I increased that number just a little bit to cover for that overtime because we are hiring 3 more full-timers that should cut down on the amount of overtime that we're giving out. But there are times where people are sick,
Right,
Kelly days, and
understood
then
that.
we cover those slots, so we are gonna have some overtime, yes.
But I just see where it says 2025, department head proposal, it's blank. Did you have a recommendation number that you want to enter in that column?
No, not in that column, or in that cell.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair,
Yes, Ms. Sustain?
so I think we can go back to the table and pull that overtime out of that top number and put it down at the bottom since he incorporated it in the line at the top. When the department heads don't put a recommendation for there unless we foresee that there's going to be a cost there, we don't put in any projected cost there.
Gotcha.
And especially since we knew that they were gonna hire 3 full-time people. So it makes sense that we would significantly shrink overtime, but since, Chief Plackey has incorporated it in that number, we'll pull down some of that for overtime and project that for 2024.
Okay.
And you can look for that correction next time.
For
You
2025?
will make a note.
You mean for 2025?
I'm sorry, yes, 2025. Yes, I do mean that. Thank you, Ms. Orr.
And Madam Chairperson?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Okay. And now down to 5212, hold on, yeah, 521202, the FICA Medicare. Now, this is just the difference between what I'm seeing here and what we were emailed. Now, what I'm seeing here, we've got that recommended as being 6,500, whereas we've got in our email copy that FICA Medicare is recommended at 40,000, and the 40,000 seems to be more in line to what it was last year. Now, what's the difference for that?
No, it's more in line of what it was budgeted last year. The actual was 5,482.47.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Ms. Anderson, continue. We're really running on time, so,
Madam Chair,
yes, Ms. Zort.
I'm wondering why there's no OPERS.
Part-time
It's part-time,
firefighters,
yeah, they don't-
part-time firefighters do not contribute to OPERS, so that really should not be there.
So they contributed, in the actual, it says they contributed almost $123,000.
I'll need to research why that's there.
They normally don't.
So you're saying that should not be there?
That's what she said.
Continue, Ms. Anderson, I'm sorry. We're just trying to make sure we get through all light items.
Okay, that concludes the 2025 part-time firefighters budget, proposed and recommended.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Gaston.
Chief Plackey, so at the bottom here where it says the 2025 recommended, are you okay with the 495,000? Or do you think, what are your thoughts?
I need to go back and look at my calculations because I just want to make sure. So I want to be certain that
Okay.
these numbers are actual.
Is it possible that you can email us what you would like it to be so that we're all on the same page?
Yes.
Yes,
Appreciate that.
Madam Chair,
yes, Ms. Stokestein.
I'm sorry, Ms. Gaston, which line were you referring to?
At the
All way
very bottom, just
the total.
the total.
The total.
Oh,
I was asking if he
Oh,
was,
got it.
if he
Okay.
was pleased with that
Mhm.
number, and if he's not, what he would recommend that number to look like, so we can go over that.
I think the
Okay.
difference fall on the salaries, but he had everything else.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Zort.
there was one other line item. It's the medical insurance. It looks like for 2024 actuals, they have spent $17,631, but yet there's none for 2025. Is that another thing that needs to be removed? Shouldn't be there?
So part-timers typically do not pay into medical insurance. Again, that is something that I will be looking into.
I think those was full-timers.
Ms. Anderson, I do have one more question.
Who was that?
Me.
Chief Lackey.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The line item where it says EMS processing fee, fire, what is that?
Can you give me the number on that for me?
It's
is
$1,599.73.
It's 524,140.
Right.
1599.73.
If you will recall.
211 fund, I have something marked that says 211 fund, I'm sorry.
No, I had that same thing right there too, from the last meeting.
So what that line item is if you will recall, earlier in the year, the previous administration they were administering those EMS firefighters receipts. So the receipts were coming into the bank, and then there was a processing fee. It typically should have been absorbed in the 211, but because they took it over and put it into the general fund, then of course they had to pay the fees out of the general fund. So that's what that is.
Thank you for clarification.
So it's no longer being processed. Those payments are no longer being processed into the general fund. So you don't see that it's being expensed out of that. There's no need to budget for that. Not out of the general fund, because it's back where it belongs in the 211.
That doesn't come off with EMS or Med-Account Management or EMS billing company? They don't take that processing fee?
They don't take a fee. It's on the bank statements.
So the fee's actually from the bank?
It
I'm
says
trying to
EMS
figure out
no,
where this
it's not a
fee's-
bank. It's not a bank fee.
Because I know with our EMS billing company, they take their cut essentially before we get.
I'd be more than happy to get with you and show you where those are coming out of the bank.
Yeah. I want to make sure that it's. Oh.
So we feel that the general fund should not be paying that if they're not, governing that fund. The next we have is code enforcement. I myself am not quite clear on this position. Previously, you've seen that I had it under Derek Rice, but I believe that we are bringing in, or at least doing contracted services for that line. And also, you may see that the vehicle lease may go away. So those two lines, you may see that they may be adjusted. However, we did account for a person to come in and do our code enforcement for us. What we were also able to do was to bring down the supplies and materials and also the nuisance abatement, more in line with the 2024 actual.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Orr?
So can somebody help me understand, like, who is the wages? That says per year contracted. We're not doing that now, right?
So I think there's like a discrepancy. He was contracted and then he was an employee. I don't have the history. I'm sorry, but a contracted line or a wages line, it's pretty much the same thing. We're paying someone for that service.
Because I was about to say, isn't Derek Rice a public works employee?
Yes. And the person before that was Doug, and he
Doug was a firefighter.
He was a fire employee.
Yeah, he's a public works employee.
But, all right. So who was the department head that proposed the 105,000?
That was in the budget that I submitted. Well, I didn't originally submit code enforcement in my proposal because I wasn't sure if it was going to be housed in the fire department anymore. But if I had to speculate on the wages where it's 105, that is the salary plus benefits, everything that comes along with it. That's not take home. So that's retirement, healthcare, all that stuff.
If it were a salary position, those lines would be, they would be across those lines. It wouldn't be all on one line if it were salaries. If it were an employee, you would see, just like every other department, you'd see salaries and OPERS, you'd see, Medicare, FICA, all those things. But this is taking into consideration that this might be a contracted position.
So do we have anybody in that position now?
I think so.
I don't know.
Madam Chair, we have the public works person, Derek, who's doing it. It probably, yeah, that's who's doing it right now.
Okay, the EMS billing, the 211, that is funded by
Sorry, Ms.
EMS
Anderson.
billing.
I have,
Sure.
Hold on,
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Orr. We are really running short on time. We're
It's,
gonna,
it's a quick answer. So who is the, I'll call it the manager over code enforcement? Is it under fire? Is it under police? Is it under, who is it under?
Madam Chair, may I speak to that?
yes.
Ms. Chamberlain moved it under Public Works. And it is, so we'll be reviewing that in 2025 to make sure that it is in the best possible space and then we can get the best possible candidate.
Thank you.
The fire equipment fund, funded by the EMS billing. These recommendations from the department head are what we also recommended. The only difference that you'll see is the EMS billing line. That was added, but everything else remained the same.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Alexander?
I know when we last spoke, we spoke about hydrant repair, and it was like a vast difference.
That was,
427.
that was due to the lines not being aligned right on the spreadsheet. So
So
once we,
it is the 12,000 and that like $437.19.
it is the $437.19.
That was our actual for the 2024, correct?
Correct.
And then the proposed was 12,734.
Budgeted. 12. And it actually was 4.
Well, I was speaking to the 2025. He said 12,734. And then we recommended what he proposed.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Mayor.
if I may ask, what is the processing fee, fire?
The EMS billing processing fee?
That's what we were speaking of?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
That's what it was.
All right, Ms. Anderson, continue.
And when we get to the 302, the fire levy fund, you will see that it's the same as well. What was proposed by Chief Plackey is also what was recommended. With the exception that we've decided tonight to bring down the overtime line and to include that in the fire fund levy. Ms. Dugstein, where did you want to see that number?
Well, technically, the overtime line, Chief Plackey put in the 665,000. He said he incorporated part-time, overtime in that line. And so we need to bring it down to it says actual overtime fire underneath the part-time. So we need to have it there. So we'll pull some of that number out in consideration that they will hire 3 full-time.
Okay.
And he said that he anticipated that it would reduce significantly the part-time, overtime. So we'll see what that number is per his calculation, pull it out and put it down there,
I will work
as
together
opposed
with you
to
on that.
lumping it over in the next page.
Okay.
Because it kind of makes those numbers look different when actually they may be more close to his $665,000 if we were had them pulled out separately and get them closer to and seeing it more visually for everyone else.
Okay.
All right, continue, Ms. Anderson.
Unless you have any questions, this one is self-explanatory. Everything that Chief Plackey asked for is what we recommended.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to recreation.
Ms. Anderson, I do have one
Yes,
question.
yes.
What, do you have the carryover for the levy listed there?
Yes,
What is that amount?
$1,690,000.
should be at the very
604, is
bottom.
that what it says?
Yes, 604.
Is there a reason why it was whited out on mine?
Yes, Miss, the Judge
Is that my
Chester.
copy?
I'm so sorry. Those were, audience copies. You picked up an audience copy.
Oh, okay.
So I had her white it out just because.
I was wondering why he said he had white on his, because
Yeah.
I'm like everyone else's. So, Mr. Chief Plaffey, would you like to switch to one of the ones we have for your, so you don't have to have that copy?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I had to scratch with like a lottery ticket trying to get. but-
Did you win?
so-
Okay, I'll swap you a copy out. Sorry.
Eric, we can use Erica's copy.
Erica's not here, we get Erica's copy.
Okay.
All right, let's,
I just came to grab one.
Okay.
I've heard the phrase.
I know. Oh, never mind.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I do have something I want to hand out.
You want to hand out something?
Yeah, so I took a little bit of time. I put together kind of like a state of the fire department kind of thing, and also there's some budget stuff in here as well. And yeah, it just kind of like goes over, you know, what we've done so far since the passing of the levy, what, you know, the obligations that we promised, and just a little bit of information on that. So I would like to pass that out to.
We can pass it out, but I don't think we have time to look at it right now.
No, you don't have to look at it now.
So,
And Mr.
would you like to pass it out
Yeah.
to
Madam
us
Chair?
in this
Yeah.
committee, or would you like to save it for council?
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, Ms. Dukeston, yes, ma'am.
if I could speak to it, if you want to pass it out now, it's up to you, but I really want to bring you back. And, you know, Ms. Chichester, I was going to suggest that she bring you back and you give a whole presentation on what things you've done there, as opposed to trying to shortcut you today. But you are free to pass it out. I'm not trying to hold any information back from anybody, but it warrants a little bit more time and you really giving it a presentation if you'd like to, you know, just get with
Absolutely.
her and put you on a calendar for a later date.
I could do that, but I
Yes.
mean, I can also, I mean, this
You
can
can
be
give
like
it
a
to us
little-
now, I just can't.
Yeah, no, I understand. We're running behind. I get it.
I'm trying to get us all
Yeah.
home by fourth quarter at least.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief Blackie.
Yeah, no
You are more than welcome back, or get it with me ahead of time, and then I can put you on the agenda, and then you can give your presentation, because we do want to hear what you have put together.
This gives us time to digest it a little.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So that's helpful.
Thank you,
So
appreciate
if we
it.
could do both, get a copy and
Thank you.
do a presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Clear?
Oh, yeah, this is hardy here.
I appreciate it.
Leave one for Erica down there.
Thank you.
Okay, recreation.
Chief, I'll send you an email to follow up.
Thank you.
You got one for me?
Ms. Clear, go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Before we begin with the numbers, in the previous meeting where we first went over the budget, we ran out of time before we could get to recreation. And the other department heads were afforded a brief opportunity to kind of give a quick year in review and a current status of where they are prior to diving into the numbers. I would like to be afforded the same opportunity. And so I would respectfully ask for 5 minutes to, before we get into the numbers, to go through the same information that the previous department heads had the opportunity. Thank you. The packet that you give me, that I gave you, for those of you who are familiar with my routine, this is my third go around with presenting budget to council, and I normally present a narrative that goes through a current status, year in review, and explains a little bit about why I'm asking for the numbers that I'm asking for in the future budget cycle. So I do want to just preface this a little bit, and I'm trying to be cognizant of my time here. I'm not going to go through the entire year in review. It's 4.5 pages long. But I do feel it's important to note that when this year began, the city was experiencing a staffing issue. And as a part-time employee, I was available to assist, and so council had passed an ordinance that allowed me to increase my time to be able to assist finance and administration. As the staffing situations continue to progress, I'll put it that way, I absorbed more responsibilities in terms of finance office and administration while we were working through getting the staffing situation stabilized. I provided emergency backfill support in the finance office and handled administrative tasks with the authorization of Mayor Nichols. I'm not going to go through all of this. Prepared bank deposits, vouchers, checks, reconciled card statements, entered requisitions. I actually ran payroll for three or four pay cycles, I can't remember, because there literally was no one else in the entire city available to do it. So I ran payroll for a couple of periods there. Reconciled reports. I worked with Ms. Anderson to get payroll reports and the reconciliation for the insurance payments, because when we get our insurance bills, they're just like a big long list of people, right? So all that has to get broken out into which department is it supposed to get billed to and all of that. So I had to help get all that organized. I also manage the rental registrations. When we have rental properties in the city, there's a rental registration fee and a process and a form that needs to be filled out. I manage that process as well. I also coordinated the senior center remodel. And that was started in 2023, but continued into 2024. Relocation of the finance office, council files, city records. I worked with IT, Alta Fiber, Cincinnati Bell to ensure that the city's network, I worked with Ms. Zorb a little bit on that to the city's servers and network and everything were moved over here. I supervised that move. We didn't have a city administrator. We had one off and on throughout the year. So if there were any situations that came up during the day that required, just, hey, what should I do? I would consult with the mayor and I helped answer those questions. So I just want to preface that. That was my first 4 months of this year. So the initiatives that I had originally planned on to get started with recreation and building these programs and getting, programming in here had to take a back seat. There were higher priorities going on in the city that required my time. So with that being said, the budget numbers for last year and into this year are, at least in terms of recreation, are relatively flat. Because I need the opportunity, and I would like the opportunity, and discussed it with the mayor and Ms. Dukestein, to put forward those and develop those recreational programs that we wanted to do this year, but had to take a back seat, and we're going to do those next year. So that is why a lot of these numbers are the way they are. They're pretty flat. There's a couple of things that are different, and in my packet I do explain in the second section. Proposed budget for 2025 is just a really quick rundown of which numbers are the same and which are different and why they're different. So that's what I wanted to say, and I do appreciate the opportunity to being able to explain that to council and to this committee as we go into discussing the budget.
Made it in with 1 minute to spare.
And if anyone in TV land didn't get all of that, you can just pause and rewind.
Ms. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
My question is just for clarification. You said you wanted to implement some new programs for 2025?
These are the programs that we had initially intended to start this year. And unfortunately, due to the timing, usually you have to start this process in December or January.
Which programs were those?
Ohio State University, we contracted with them. We signed a memorandum of understanding. They offer the family nutrition programs and also 4-H. And the 4-H programs would be free to the community, free to the city for the most part. And they have a ton of programs. It's not just agriculture. They have STEM programs, arts, music. They have a ton of programs, and we had initially went down that path with them, and then it had to get put on hold. So we got started really too late this year to implement those programs, but we are definitely going to be working on that for next year.
Madam Chair. Yes, Ms. Zorb.
So, Ms. Clear, is it safe to assume that that's the contracted services for $15,000 then?
No.
Help me.
There's a notes column in the original spreadsheet. The contracted service, well, I don't know if you want to, because
Yeah,
I want to,
let's
I want to go into the normal pattern of
Order.
behavior here. And let's let her go through the numbers, and then we'll, if we can start that process. I'd rather
Thank
follow
you.
the same
That's-
process. That way we can make sure we capture things and we're not jumping around.
So are you finished?
I am, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Now we can move to Ms. Anderson. So
Thank you.
give me a second, Ms. Anderson, so I can set our timer. Well, actually, you can go ahead while I'm setting the timer.
Okay. Actually, I did get a chance to meet with Ms. Clear, and we went over the numbers. Well, she gave me an idea of what she thought the actuals should look like when I did get the actuals entered. We're on par with salaries. There's room for a 3% increase there. And the reason why you see the actuals for 2024 is because we did go back and do some retro pay, just like with every other, or several other departments, there was some retro pay and a raise. But the 2025 is on par with a 3% increase. We haven't deviated very far from the actuals for OPERS, for FICA, and also for workers' comp. That's actually a formula. Contracted services, what I have in my line is that that's for rentals, portalets, DJ photography for 2024. Grant funded for 2024. Senior center post-event cleaning fees.
Chair, sorry. Can I hold, can we take notes to the end, to let her get through a little bit, and then we'll go back and review everybody's questions so we can make it through?
Sure.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Okay. The next budgeted line is for the Civic Rec software. That looks like it's a new expense for.
This will be our year 3 for it. 2025 will be year 3. So, and that is an expense that is split between recreation and the senior budget right now, because the software is utilized for both purposes, to schedule senior fees as well as senior activities as well as recreational activities. So that is the portion that's allocated to the rec budget, and the other portion is, when we get to the senior budget, you'll see it in there.
Okay.
But collectively, that is the annual subscription fee for that software.
Okay. Looks like she, even though there are some actuals for 2024 in these spaces, she has asked that you see Parks Department for the budget on those numbers. Let's see, okay. Looking at printing and reproduction, I took that to $5,000. It actually can come down a little bit based on the actuals. IT equipment and supplies. You said that was.
We had the Civic Rec in that line last year,
Okay.
and it belongs in software fees.
So that's why we have the $3,600 budgeted on line item 523225, and where it was previously in 523820. So there's a switch there. Supplies and materials.
So that is flat to last year with the addition of the ice skating, which we discussed moving into recreation for next year. That was not budgeted for in recreation this year, but it will be for next year, and that's why that number is different from the 15K to the 40,000.
And the next line, you will note that that is where you'll see the ice skating rink built into that budgeted line. And then the car show, we budgeted up just slightly for that. Okay, and then we're expecting some refunds.
And that's basically a placeholder, because we need a place to occasionally we'll have something that backs out, or we need to refund a participant fee for some reason, and that's what that is for. I did have a question about the credit card fee when we get to that point.
We are at the credit card fee. This is the first time your department has had a credit card.
Well, we do not absorb those costs. That is paid directly by the payee to the merchant services provider. and we do not.
To your credit card, your city-issued credit card.
My city-issued card. There's fees?
Yeah, there's fees. If you would like for me to get that information for you, I will.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
Typically, that line item has been like if someone were to pay us with a credit card, and there's that 3% fee that we have to absorb and then pay. That's what I was accustomed to using that line for. But our processing service that is attached to Civic Rec, we do not incur those fees. We only keep the net. It's a lot less paperwork.
I'll get that number for you, okay? Let's see. If you don't mind, we will go down to, okay, so that concludes this particular fund line, which is the general fund. Looks like Parks has your capital equipment. And now we are at, typically you don't budget for the Parks Department, is that correct?
This is a new fund. This fund did not exist prior to this fiscal year. However, since the expenses that are relative to parks are unique to that situation, they involve maintenance, they involve, trees, playground equipment, capital expenditures of that nature. We broke that out, and it also helps the city to get a good handle on what is our actual burn rate in terms of maintenance, general maintenance of the parks. We have 6 city parks, which is a lot for 1.8 square miles, but we do have 6 city parks that do require maintenance. They have tree removal, they have playground equipment, canvas that needs to be replaced, things like that we need to account for. And that is separate from the capital improvements, which are down at the bottom.
So as you can see, the 2024 actuals are low in comparison to the 2025 recommendations, because there's a need for an increase in those areas in the parks. So we want to make sure that we have enough budgeted that we don't have to return back and continue to get appropriations on those lines.
And for specifically equipment capital, the 101.310525200, and I'm shocked I can read that from here. The 90,000, that is just, that is the 89,125-ish from the ordinance, or the resolution that was passed for the Nature Works grant. We did actually get that grant, so I'm very excited about that. That is for the Veterans Park Accessibility Improvements Project, but we did get that grant, and that will need to be obligated because it is a reimbursement type grant. So we will incur the expense, and then we will be reimbursed by the state of Ohio for those expenses, minus the 25% match.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Mayor.
either Ms. Clear or Ms. Anderson, if you could tell me where,
Oh, is that a question, Madam Mayor? I
yeah,
thought so we were going to let them run through it, and then everybody's going
okay.
to write their questions down. Sorry. I thought you
No.
were just going to make a statement. Sorry.
no apology.
I don't have anything budgeted in the 499 because this is actually a duplicate.
It's a duplicate, yeah. I was going to say we can cross that off.
Yeah, you'll see that on when we get to finance. The senior revenue fund, so I'll let Ms. Clear talk about that.
Oh, I'll try. Hold on a second. Get to the right page here. So, Fund 204, Senior Citizens, just for some background information for some newer council members who may not be aware, prior to 2022, All of those funds were distributed in one lump sum to the nonprofit organization that had been previously managing this facility. So the city didn't really need to concern itself with breaking things out by gas and electric and all of that. We just, and that's why you see the historical information, it's all just a lump sum. So whatever was collected in terms of the senior levy was distributed to that nonprofit organization in a lump sum. It wasn't until 2023 or 24 that we really started to break it out, because it would be a city-managed function at that point, city-managed facility and services, that we needed to break that out for budget purposes.
So you will see that there is an amount, the actual amount for the salaries for the seniors coordinator was actually about $1,000 less, but we did put $1,000 in there for any after-hours events. Same for OPERS, we kept that kind of consistent. We signed a new contract for the janitorial. We also have pest control now, and that's not just for this building, but it's also for Public Works. These are some pretty close numbers to the actuals for the senior center, which does receive a split with the general fund. So it looks like postage is also split with recreation. Auditor fees, that's you typically split across departments. So the building maintenance is where it is because it's just as it says, the age of the building and unknown. We run into some unknown issues. Also, the insurance, the liability insurance has gone up. So we placed $3,000 there. The supplies is typically what gets ordered for the activities around the senior center. We have a lot going on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we do provide for our guests. And then just for the overall operating expenses to run the senior center. Now, I did include the levy amount down at the bottom that's slated for 2025, a little more than $54,000. As you can see, the recommended amount is a little bit over that. So the way we supplement that is from the general fund. So there will need to be an amount from the general fund to cover those expenses. Nothing to report on the special revenue fund.
Oh, I didn't know that was going to be copied in there.
Are these not?
Those are the grants, since I have been involved with the department, that I've applied for and received, and down at the bottom there is the residential recycling incentive grant that we are awarded through Hamilton County Resource. And it's based on our percentage of landfill diversion rate. So the more people recycle in the city, the higher our percentages, and then that puts us into a chart that says, okay, based on your tonnage, you get so much of a kickback, basically. And we've been using that for, last year we purchased new park furniture with that funding, as long as it's recycled materials and it meets the criteria for an expenditure. The postcard that went out a little bit late this year for the leaf pickup and the recycling also was funded with those funds. So.
That's pretty good.
And the recycling events that we do, the drop-off events, if I have to take anything down or anything goes to the recycling hub and there's a fee, that can come out of that as well.
I want to say on the cleanup ordinance, you'll see on the 230, I believe that there is an amount of a little over $4,000 that's over. So you don't typically see that when you're at the end of the year. we will be decreasing that fund by that overage.
Yes, and what you see there is the entire 20-year history of our participation in that program. We have to submit annual reports to the county, and so these were the numbers that were physically on those reports if they had been submitted for that year. So that shows that whatever we were awarded, what was expended, and then the unexpended amount for that year. And it does roll over.
Madam Chair, are we ready for comments and questions?
Ms. Anderson, are you finished?
I am.
All right.
I'll let you go in the order that you.
Yeah, I was thinking we'll just go down the line, go in a row. Is that okay with everybody?
Okay.
All right. Mr. Davis, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
Yes, questions and concerns. This is for 301, 523, I'm guessing either 523000 or 524002. Now,
Wait. One number at a time. Which number was it?
okay, because it's a matter of city community development and recreation. We've requested that we're going to be doing events for 2025. That the party in the park concert series and the fireworks drone show, so on and so forth. And I'm asking so obviously that's going to need a corresponding fund match. And I'm asking, so where would I ask for that money to come from? Would we ask that to go to 523000 or 524002? How we go about requesting the money to throw these events as needed?
Madam Chair?
Yes. Ms. Blake.
Everything I have budgeted here so far is based on actual quotes that I have in hand or previous expense history that I am aware of that has already cost us this amount in the past. So that's what I have planned on here. If there was going to be an additional amount added to this budget, my preference would be that we have numbers in hand and that those numbers are verified and have run through the internal channels for administration to say that we're going to add that.
So it's my understanding, you are asking what fund should those events that you are planning for 2025 that were not listed come out of? And you are saying that any additional events or things that need to be funded need to be, what was your answer on that?
They would go into whichever bucket's appropriate. So like if it is a contracted
there's-
service, then it would go to contracted services. If it's a supplies, it would go to supplies. But
Right.
I would need to see an actual quote.
But they need to present those, so he can present actual quotes to you for those events that he named, and then you could figure out what bucket they can come out of?
That's typically how that would go.
Okay.
But there is
So-
a channel internally. I would have to run it through.
Absolutely. So
Administration.
he's just asking for clarification because he didn't hear. So, Mr. Davis, I would plan your event and get some estimates and then submit those to Ms. Clear, and then she can go through the appropriate channels. Did that answer your question?
And close enough. I know where to ask my next questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dixon.
And so events, there are times when we do things that aren't, like Juneteenth was one of them. We expanded it more than we had in previous years, this past year. So when that arises, Ms. Clear is absolutely right, that you get your quotes, and we can reappropriate. It's a constantly, it's a fluid document. It constantly changes. We want to stick to it as closely as possible, but there are definitely things, just like there are emergencies that come up with buildings, there are different events that we have an opportunity. I know Ms. Clear didn't incorporate this, but there are lots of like grant opportunities that we may be awarded within 2024 to get some of this back. And since I'm talking, I'll just say this with the senior amount, the levy only paying like roughly $55,000, and it left a gap coming from the general fund for 2020 around $20,000. We have projectively going back into the general fund if we do any rentals.
Right.
And we haven't accounted for that income. So I just wanted to keep it out there. Again, this is a fluid document. It will constantly change if appropriations need to happen throughout the year. Ms. Anderson and I are going to get on a quarterly review of this and bring that back to council in the budget and finance meetings as well. And that'll be to the plus, where we're making money and where we're having to reappropriate, so that we don't have to do any more cleanup ordinances, or not, at least not big ones at the end of the year.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dukestein. Mr. Davis, are you finished with your questions?
Yeah,
All right. Mr. Wilson, do you have any questions?
No.
Ms. Ellis, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just had a question of clarification. It was in the park section, and it said cellular service, and I just wanted clarification as to, that was 101-310-523-201. I just wanted to know clarification for cellular service.
Madam Chair?
parks.
Initially, that was going to be, we were going to be installing cellular security cameras in a couple of the parks. So that's what that was stubbed for. But again, due to the 4-month-ish delay with being able to get any, that did not happen this year as it was originally anticipated to happen.
So it wasn't like cellular cell phones for more
No,
security.
it was for, so the cameras would operate on cellular connection versus Wi-Fi. It's a lot easier to maintain from a hardware perspective and less expensive to maintain from a hardware perspective for the city. That's why we were going to go that route.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you.
that's all.
Ms. Gaston?
I do not have any questions right now.
Okay. Ms. Zork?
Yeah, I have quite a few. Imagine that. So
You
on,
have 5 minutes.
sure, in recreation, under contracted services, it's 523,000. So on our previous version, for contracted service, it said 1,500, now it's 15,000. And then the comment next to it says DJ, bands, Rumpke, instructors, but it also said, says it's moved to parks. So did that move to parks? Did that not move to parks?
I believe the original version of the spreadsheet that you had from earlier in November, the notes column was from the 2023 proposal for 24. It is not the notes that were for this year's proposal. They were for prior year proposal. And I believe the 1,500 was just a typo. Somebody, we missed the zero.
But, yeah.
Okay, that's an important zero.
Yeah.
All right. My next question goes down to supplies and materials. I think I heard something about the ice skating in there, because it jumped from 15,000 to 40. So obviously we didn't budget for that because we didn't know anything about it. So is the ice skating cost $25,000?
No, it's closer to 20.
So the ice skating park costs 20 grand.
It's close, it's under 20, but it's close.
So so that means it hasn't been paid for yet this year,
It has been paid for this year.
but the actual line is only 14,000.
Because I'm sorry, Madam
It's coming
Chair.
out of a different bucket this year. Yeah.
She said that too in her report.
Sorry.
That, Madam Chair, I'm sure was that from the festival? Those numbers from those actuals,
I beg your pardon.
the Harvest Festival?
What are we asking about? Are we asking about the
She's
cost of the
asking
ice skating, or are we asking where the
No, the
15,000
current-
came
are you
from?
talking about the
All of the
current?
above, please.
Yes, so the 14,690 and 73 is the actuals that were incurred as of whenever you've run your most recent expense statement. The vast majority of festival has been paid for and would be reflected in those numbers. But the ice skating event was funded from a different account this year.
Correct.
And it will be funded from recreation next year.
Correct.
So that's why that number is different. I did not actually see the invoices for the ice skating, so we asked Ms. Anderson to accommodate for whatever those other recreational pieces that went with it, and add that to recreation budget for '24.
So where is the
I'm
ice
sorry, for
skating-
'25.
Where is the ice skating actuals for 2024?
2 minutes, Ms. Orr.
Madam Chair,
It's
Yes,
not
Ms.
gonna be in this, but
it's not in the recreational budget. There was no,
I'm asking where it is, though.
it's in, professional contracted services.
Is that in, which department is it? It's not Department Recreation, it's some other department.
Mayor's
Yeah.
department,
I don't know which department it was in.
I think they said the mayor's department.
administration.
Okay, I have a,
1 minute.
I don't understand why I'm under a time restraint.
Because we're all under a time restraint for our
Sure.
time.
So when we get to the special revenue, the senior citizens, so there's a calculation that's, again, on this older report, the one from November, and it says that that line item, they get paid $15.45 an hour, roughly 27 and a half hours per week, and then obviously there's 52 weeks in a year. So that comes out to $22,000, but we've only budgeted 9, and we're already over budget for that particular area. So I'm kind of wondering why do,
well, it's not, it wasn't calculated for 52 weeks a year. It was calculated for 26 pay periods.
so is the
The 27.5
27.5 hours per week, that's really bi-weekly?
She only works 15 hours a week.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms.
if I could, that position does not work 27 hours per week. That position only works roughly
20.
maybe
15-ish.
20,
15-ish. It's,
yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Between 15 and 20 hours a week is what we have in Paycor.
So that's an error.
Let's do that math.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Clear. Do you have anything else you want to add to your recreational?
Madam Chair, I had a question.
That line is still short.
Ms. Lord, I gave you 5 minutes.
I understand, but there's, the budget needs to be addressed.
I understand, but you spent 3 minutes on the ice skating rink. And we have to move on. We have other line items on our agenda to get to that we have to get to today.
Understand the ice skating rink was not budgeted, which is why it took longer to discuss.
It's not up for discussion, Ms. Lord. I have to keep moving. We have 2 more things we have to get to, and it's
There's a lot more things.
20 minutes. Thank you, Ms. Clear.
Yeah, just 10 more seconds. The only other thing in here that's the biggest big-ticket item is the proposal to add the metered electrical service in 3 of the parks. You have the detail for that also in the packet that I provided. So you have some information. We can take that to the next meeting and discuss.
Ms. Mayor, Madam Mayor.
I just need to, because I missed it, or where in this budget in the parks is the maintenance for the parks?
Maintenance for the park, oh, sure. That was,
And I'm talking the weeding.
yeah,
I saw that.
yeah. It was,
I believe that's under equipment repair and maintenance, just because, just to simplify things. But I don't have individual line items for like mowing the yard and, doing general groundskeeping, other than contracted services.
Sit with you on that because I
Yeah.
haven't spoken. I
Okay.
haven't had a contract. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's blank.
Just to clarify, I did say to Ms. Clear that I would get with her on that because there was conversations and we were looking into companies who were coming out
Okay.
in order to do that, just so she can have those.
Ms. Gaston, did you have something?
She, Madam Mayor answered it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ms. Dixon, did you, you were looking at me, I thought you were going to say something. Okay.
I'm sticking to the timeline.
Ms. Anderson, are we clear, are you clear to wrap up? Awesome, thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the cleanup ordinance.
no, I'm sorry. We still haven't done administration and finance.
Board, council.
All right, let's go on to that one.
I wish
Sorry, I wanted to get through the minutes we could, but we can't. And you want to go to the administration?
Yes, please. It really isn't, if you just want to look through it, and if you have any questions.
We were all supposed to review before. Did anybody already review the administration in advance and have any questions?
Did, I'm just trying to find the page.
Second from last, third from last, I'm sorry.
Here it is.
Right?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Mayor.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't see it, and I missed it. The indigent cremations.
So indigent
That's
is,
blank.
yeah, that's now on the general fund instead
Okay.
instead of,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Go ahead on, to the next item, Ms. Anderson.
No questions for administration?
Yes, I do. I'm curious what the actual salaries for, full-time is 205,000. Can you help me with that?
Like
The
the
administrator's salary does come out of that line. Ms. Eke, we're still paying for Ms. Eke. We're still, she's not under the contracted services. She's receiving her full salary until the end of the year.
I understand that, but we went without a city administrator for, what, 6 months, 4 months?
In 2024?
Yeah.
It was 4.
Madam Chair, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Ben is out of that line. Ms. Eke, that is the actual number from Paycor.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Mayor.
that would be Ms. Sager.
Is it?
She was before Ben.
Okay.
Ms. Eke, Mr. Tour. I hate to say names. but-
Actually, Mr. Torrey is not under that line. He's under the full-time cleric. Just 3 lines down.
So,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson, now this is before my time, but I'm just trying to help you recall.
Yeah.
I know that Ms. Eke received
Oh,
some variances per her contract.
Thank
But
you.
it may have impacted that. I know
Thank
when
you.
you and I talked about that,
yes.
because I figured that would be a line,
Correct.
that's
yes.
what we talked about.
Yeah,
So-
thank you so much, because I just couldn't remember. But yes, there were some payouts for Ms. Eke. She was paid out on her contract of vacation time, sick time, plus she's receiving her full salary.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Next line.
The professional services, it just says CIT. I think the rest of the words cut off. I'm not sure what that is. That was $90,000?
Ms. Dorr, can you say which line that is, please?
Yes.
I sure can. It's 523704.
So the actual is 70,000, and the proposed is not, the recommended is 90.
Right, I'm asking what are we paying
So
for there?
CIT is, I'm thinking it's city. So anytime you bring someone in and they're doing additional services, that's not, that's a contract. That's not a salary. That's where that would go. We've previously had, what's her name? She's my employee now.
Aaron.
And yes, Aaron was previously paid on that line. We had some individuals who worked here before I came on that line. I think Michelle was paid out of that line.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Hussein.
just because I know the question's out there, it's contracted services. It's professional contracted services. Anything that we need to devise a contract for that, mayor's like, hey, I'm gonna pay for that. It's contracted services. We didn't have a finance director for a really long time. We
Right.
paid it out of that.
Right.
Any space where we are, it's just kind of random when there's a contract and it's not an actual employee or a service of
Right.
that we need as a city,
It just goes on that.
it goes
under
there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope, let's move on.
The law director? Let's see. And if you had a chance to renew or review it, those lines are not out of the, out of baseline for the actuals. Legislative, again, keeping in with, closely with the actuals is where we made the recommendations.
Now, is the law director contract, I'm sorry, Madam Chairperson?
He is an employee,
Okay. Okay, so his salary is already contracted, all right.
yes. And if you don't have any questions, I'll move to finance, and that's our final presentation on the budget.
Let's all hold our questions to the end so we can get through this. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Professional salaries, is not very, the recommended is not very far from the actual. I'll let you, again, read through and see if there's anything that flags for you.
Thank you.
At least in the 704. 704 is the finance department. The income tax department is just the flat fee per year from Rita, plus any mailings that we might have.
Council, does anybody have any question about the 704 finance budget?
still
Madam Chair,
reading.
I do.
Let's go down the line. I think I heard everybody down there on that side. Mr. Davis?
Can you skip me and come back to me? I'm still reading, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Wilson?
No.
Marshall?
Just curious, looking at that, at the CMI, the actual was 43,000 and then it went down to 3,000?
Correct. That's because we did do an upgrade. Now we're down to just the annuals for requisition rounding, and then there's another amount for an annual on that. That actually may need to be a little bit higher. Just a little bit, though. I think about 4,000 high, because I just got the bill actually today for 2025, and I'm holding off on it to pay it out of this budget. And it takes us from January through December. So it's just a little bit higher than this, I think by about maybe $4,000 more. But that's what that is.
Okay.
Ms.
And
Andrews,
the-
I'm sorry.
Marshall?
One more, the professional development, I see the actual was like 236, but the recommendation is 5,000.
Only because there are 3 individuals in the department, and all of whom would like to do some additional trainings.
All right.
Thank you.
And finally, why do audit fees vacillate from year to year?
So it depends. If we're in an audit year, right now we're on a 2-year cycle. We may not have any fees for that year,
Okay.
but we will have it for 2023, 2024, because this is our audit year.
Okay, but so we still, and So we'd expect it to be higher in 2025? even though
We
we've
expect to
been
have
under?
an expense for 2025, for sure, yes.
Mr. Davis, do you have any other questions?
I think I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gaston?
Nope, Marshall asked those.
Okay. Ms. Zord?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Okay, we did touch on Rita.
I'm sorry, I did skip you guys. Ms. Dixon?
That's okay.
Okay,
If they're
did you go?
fine, I'm fine. If council's fine, I'm fine.
Okay.
Building and zoning, Mr. Knight is, he doesn't have wages, he's a contracted service. Then postage and materials may be a little high, it may be able to come down. And then refunds. So there was an actual of $300 this year. However, I'm not familiar with what that number is typically. So I kept it in line with the 2023 actual. And then also the credit card fees.
Council, any questions on that? All right. Ms. Anderson, let's.
Okay, and in community environment, this is the line where the city does pay for projects such as the islands that go up and down Hamilton Avenue. That's where these funds would come from. Any landscaping, any flowers, art projects, anything that the city would fund would come from this, within the community.
Thank you.
Madam
It
Chair.
previously had been coming and weighing very heavily on the fund that it shouldn't have, so we put it onto the city fund.
Yes, Ms. Zord?
So can you elaborate on where this came from? Because it's, obviously, it went from $99 to almost $150,000. So that's,
I'll tell you why, because it wasn't previously budgeted, and so what happened in the past, or at least in 2024, it was spread out among departments, whereas it should really be a city expense. So this fund is like an overhead fund for the city of North College Hill, rather than leaning heavily on departments.
so who has the authority to spend from this fund?
Again, that would be anyone who brings in a requisition. It's not something that I would pay from. So if we get a bill, or if we get a quote, if we get someone who says that I'd like to see, a department says, or maybe the fire department, or anyone who comes in and says that I'd like to maybe do some flowers for a particular area, or maybe we want to, whatever projects that the city thinks that they may want to undertake, this is where this would be used.
So to be clear, I think what I heard you say is any department head can spend out of this fund.
No,
Madam Chair.
Ms. Dixon?
So I think a better way to kind of deal with it is we always had this expense. It was broken up throughout the departments. Instead of it being broken up throughout the departments, that money was pulled back in. So they will have prior expenses or things that they did on a routine basis. And instead of them, and it was really so it could be more transparent for you to be able to see this expense. So we pulled it back from out of each department, and now actuals in this coming years, you'll be able to see specifically where this money's coming from and how much is actually being spent. Because it was hidden, not hidden, but just
Spread out.
Madam Chair.
overtly put.
Yes.
I mean,
More or less dispersed among departments,
Yeah.
whereas.
And now
whereas
they're
what
just
you-
putting it
and so
together
when
in
I-
one.
Yes,
I may have used the word hidden, but what I meant is just, it was just not as visible to you all. So this gives you an opportunity to see it more overtly.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, so my question was, Ms. Zorb had asked which departments can spend out of that fund.
I was going to answer that, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I would like to know.
Yeah, so, no, this is not a catch-all fund. It's not something that everyone can come and say, I know we have this over in the city fund. It does have to go through proper channels. There would have to be, voted on over a certain amount according to the charter. There would have to be a requisition. So there are checks and balances. No one can just say, would you take this out of that fund?
No, so just to clarify, what we're trying to find out, so any department, so say Public Works needed it, they will have to, come to y'all and ask for it, right?
Madam Chair.
So,
Yes.
so this is actually a fund that the finance department governs. So you have different departments who have their own funds. Well, the finance department can go to this and say, now, if it is for the city, not for a particular, department or whatever have you, but if it's a city expense, then this is something that I can use to pay those expenses on behalf of the city.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Mayor.
I think that this fund would be in particular, for instance, like when we painted the alleys. And so I don't recall where they took the funds from, but you had to find somewhere where you would take those funds from that would eat it up. So I believe that this account is for something like that, for that. When we do different beautification things, such as the decorations on the welcome sign and the different things like that, it would come from here. So anything that is city-related, not necessarily like related to a department. The beautification in the islands is city-related.
Right,
Correct.
got you.
So not necessarily Public Works or
Correct.
finance.
But if Public Works came in and they had a bill and they said that this was for the city, then this is where I would go and pull those funds. So
Or if we
no
wanted-
Public Works can't just come in and with a requisition and say, I
Say,
want.
right.
Yeah.
If we wanted to spruce up those paintings in the alleys, it would come from here.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Zorb.
So, Madam Mayor, I'm fairly confident that council created a line item just for the arts fund that the alleys got painted out of.
would not disagree.
But I still want to go back to my other question is, if I'm trying to understand the justification for these dollar amounts, where would I look for them? You're saying it's scattered through Public Works and.
It is not scattered,
like-
no, not scattered.
She said
Madam
it
Chair,
used to be scattered. and they
It
put
used to
them
be
all
scattered,
That-
so what she did is pull
Put 'em-
them
pull them all in.
in, pull them in from each department. So if you're asking which departments can spend, all of the departments kind of were already leveraging these types of funds, but underneath the umbrella. So what she
Because
did.
I'm under a timeline, I have to stop you, I'm sorry. That's not what I'm asking at all. So in order to figure out how contracted services is justified to be $50,000, what did we spend, or where can I look in this budget, in the actuals, to know where we spent $50,000? Or 50,000, there's two line items that just say contracted services. So there's $100,000 just in contracted services. And then Pies Park, I was trying to find it real quick. I think that's probably in the parks budget, so I'm not sure why that's listed here. And I think it's only $5,000, not 10. So I guess I'm looking for some better explanations, justifications.
I don't believe Pies Park rent is in parks. I could be wrong, is it? Oh, okay,
There's something there.
okay. Well, then that's something that I can take off of there.
And also, Madam Chair. Yeah. Because one of the things, our copy, we don't have the benefit of these notes up here, like where it says that
Those
first.
the notes are for me, as I'm giving it so that I can stay on task.
I guess it's just one of those where it helps us with having context for the number instead of it just being instead of it just being 50,000 down here and we don't know what it's for.
Got it.
You get what I'm saying?
Council.
I didn't get an answer.
What was your question again?
Hold on.
So,
Council. We are at 9 o'clock. Everybody okay with going over 30 minutes? Because we still have 2 agenda items after the budget to finish.
We here, we might as well
We're
get it
not
done.
finished with the budget, there's others.
I said we have
All right.
2 after the budget to still.
We here, we might as well get it done.
That's what I want to hear. I just want to make sure we were all in alignment so there weren't any issues.
So your question was about contracted services and where can you find?
Yeah, like where else would I look for to know that $100,000 for contracted services is a reasonable number?
Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying. So, because it hasn't been budgeted before, and I understand your question, it hasn't actually been budgeted until, since 2022. You see that there's an actual? So that tells me that it was budgeted in 2022. So there's an actual of $102,000 there. And so bringing it down to 50,000 seems reasonable, and you really don't know until you actually have actuals for 2025 whether you're over or you're under. So it's a projection of what we could potentially spend in 2025, but we really don't know how close we are until we get those numbers, until we get proposals, requisitions, those kinds of things. So I took it way down under just so that we would have an idea of what we could possibly, it may be that we need to budget more than that.
So I'll go back to a statement that Ms. Clear made, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But she said, and I agreed with it, that we should have quotes before we know what to put in here. I mean, you told these 2 gentlemen down here that.
So that's for her department. We're talking about the city budget right now. And for the city, she does have numbers in her department, right? She has a baseline of numbers. This is just a baseline of numbers for the city. So that if there is under or over, we would just adjust it for the next year, or we would come back for appropriations within the year. But we have to have a number to start.
So
If we want to start, I guess that's the other point.
I think what she's saying is, in previous years, we budgeted for this.
We did.
And so it was, to the contractor services, 102,868. So previously, we budgeted, we had 102,868 under is that the 2023 actual?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
it's
so
20,
what
yeah.
she's saying is in 2023, we had a budget for this. So we are budgeting for this for 2025, because remember, she's pulling these budget and these numbers from the other departments who
Correct.
originally housed these numbers.
But
So
I
if
haven't
we're
gotten that
taking,
answer where it's pulled from.
Correct.
I've asked it several times.
so we pull from other, I'm just trying to explain it the best way. So say
But
she,
I understand all that.
so say she had contracted services, things that were for the city, but they were in the police department budget, or maybe they were in the public works budget. So now what she's doing is putting them into a new budget that's community just for the city, so that those department heads don't bear that responsibility of
Correct.
those type of services.
Correct.
So we don't have actual contracted services as of yet.
Right.
But potentially in 2025, we could have these contracted services. So we want to be prepared and budget for that.
Correct.
We may not even use this line item, but we want to be prepared as a city to have that money in the pot where if we need to pull from
I
it.
can tell you that there was a particular fund, a budget, and for a department that was grossly over budgeted in these areas. So rather than lean heavily on that department, this fund will absorb those costs.
Madam Chair,
The city will absorb those costs, not that department.
Yes, Ms. Gaston?
I'm saying this for clarification. So I think what Ms. Zorb is asking is, not right now, because I don't think we can do it right now, but wherever these funds are coming from, can we just get that in writing so we can see, and we can see if it would be 50,000 in these 2 line item spots?
Madam Chair, sorry, after her.
Is that what I'm understanding,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
maybe not right now, but maybe in an email this week, if we can get that so that she can say, oh, that
Thank
makes
you.
sense. That makes 50,000, boom,
Thank you, Ms.
100,000,
Gaston,
boom.
for the clarification. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Dukes, do you
So I
have to
just
answer?
want to add to Ms. Gaston's statement. So you have to remember in 2022, when it wasn't broken out amongst departments, it was at 102,000.
Right.
And so what she said was, I'm pulling that number. So what I want to make sure we do is, and mark this, is we take that $10,000 away where Pies Park rental is. And so that will shrink that number naturally by $10,000. So we're
Yes,
looking at
I've already removed-
137,000.
I've already
So,
removed it.
yes. So if you think about the fact that we were actually at 2022, which is 3 years ago, at $102,000, we're literally only going up like $35,000, and we're 3 years later. So I don't have any issue with her providing you where the money came from, but just that was a base point or a reference point to see how it was calculated if we're looking back 3 years and we're at 100 and I'm gonna say 5,000, and now we're going up $30,000 3 years later.
That's not
That's
bad.
pretty fair.
Ms. Anderson, can you provide that answer to Ms. Zorb in an email?
Just let me make sure,
Or to all of council, I'm sorry, not just Ms. Zorb.
make sure I'm clear on her ask here.
I have it. You can.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I do have one additional question. When it comes to the building inspection line item for $15,000, who does the building inspections? Is that fire or is that the expect contractor?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
I think it depends on what they're inspecting. I know Mr. Ikens did some inspections, and Mr. Knight has done some. So I just think it depends. I know for this building, that was the case.
So if those, so where I'm going is, if it's the expect contractor, wouldn't that already be covered in his salary? It's not an additional fee that he charges the city, right? It's already covered within his salary. And if it's fire, they're already getting paid within their salary.
I don't know that it's covered in his salary, but, or under his
In his
contract.
contracted services, I probably shouldn't use the word salary.
Yeah, so you have contracted services for their service, but then you have also have, because he works for a company, so
Right,
he gets paid and then the company gets paid. So that's what that line was built for.
I don't think we need it, is where I'm going with that.
Or, Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Boothby.
Ms. Zorb, then what do you suggest that the portion that goes to his company get paid from? If you don't think we need it to pay his company, because he gets paid and then his company gets paid, so what are you suggesting?
Should we
Megan?
pay them twice for his services?
No, it's not twice, it's two different amounts. So that's how sometimes contractors do that. We did that with the contractor that Ms. Iki selected for the finances, where we paid her contract and then there was an additional fee to pay the actual company that she worked for.
It's not uncommon.
I have never heard that before.
All right, let's move
Okay.
forward. Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
Basic utility, again, this fund, I found a lot of the departments was absorbing these utilities. One department in particular was paying all of it, just about. So we brought this back in-house onto the city. And this is what you see in these buckets here.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Zorb?
So I want to make sure I understand the line that says garbage collection. Are you saying that between the 3 buildings in our city, we pay $120,000 a year in garbage?
Oh, it's pretty expensive. $55,000, I think, is what we're usually spending every 3 months, if I'm not mistaken.
We
for-
need to
for-
renegotiate that
For
contract.
trash collection, for
coming
Rumpke.
up. Yeah, I think we covered that in a different meeting, that the trash collection, contract renewal or renegotiation was coming up.
And then the street lights, where you saw in the service department, that $48,000 really should have come out of this fund, not out of Public Works, the service department.
Any questions down there, you guys? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Any other questions?
So our internet web hosting, emails, all of our IT service, we did receive a rate increase this year, and that is reflected in the recommended amount.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Orr?
So is it safe to presume that there's an outstanding bill still for the IT professional services, since we've only paid 13,000 so far? But we're expecting it to be 47.5 next year?
No, we don't have an outstanding bill.
No, we budgeted for 37,500, but we only spent actual 13,000. So I think we over budget just to have that cushion. Yes, thank you, Ms. Cassidy.
So we're over budgeting. We're adding $10,000 to an over
But
budget.
there was a rate increase, so,
I understand, but our actuals for this year is, we'll say 14,000.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a rate increase, it's going to increase it to 47.5?
if you look at the actuals for the previous years, were well above the 13, and so I don't want to budget that close on something, on service that's that important. I mean, this is kind of what runs the city. We without this, we're inoperable.
Anybody else got any comments on that? All right, move forward, Ms. Anderson.
799 is called miscellaneous. However, again, it is also the city budget. So just looking at OPERS, there is an employee portion and there's an employer portion. We match. OPERS, we match OP&F. We have certain expenses that we cover for our employees, and this is where those funds should be coming from.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am?
can you explain what miscellaneous insurance is?
I can give you an example. We have liability insurance. We have, that comes out of this line. We do match, or we do pay a certain amount for our employees, our portion of the insurance, for medical insurance. So there's just whatever, so it's miscellaneous. However, it would be, if I were to pay out of it, it would be whatever insurance has come across my desk. So if it's a deductible, say there was maybe we got a claim on our insurance, and our deductibles are at least $5,000. They're never least lower than $1,000. So that's the line that I would use.
Any other questions for council on that?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Davis?
Okay. 524-200, that's going, 524-200, that is, wait a minute,
Operating expenses?
yes. Where it's normally in the, somewhere between 5,000 and 9,000. It's up to 50,000 this year. What would be the backstory behind that?
So the reason, that can come down, but the reasoning for that is, if we get some expenses from, say for instance, they split the bill here between the senior center and the general fund.
Right.
Well, if we run low on that fund, then we've got this as a backup. So I'd rather be, have more than enough than not enough.
Rather have it and not need it.
Right, right. It could be that we get to the end of the year and we're looking for some way to pay, an expense that maybe is gone out of one of the other funds in the general fund. And this is something that we can use. So this is not a go-to fund for everything. It certainly has to go through proper channels. It certainly has to be used correctly. In terms of, a requisition being signed off on, all those kinds of things. It's not just something, it's not, that we just use just because it's there. This is a lot of these funds are just a backup, this one in particular, a backup fund.
Something akin to what they used to call a rainy day fund?
Yeah, something like that. Something like where if we don't have it in a regular operating expense bucket, then we can always certainly fall back on this one.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Gaston.
So it was mentioned that this number could come down. What would you
Could
bring
come
it down
down.
to? Because I know this document is fluid, so
Yeah,
if
this
it
could
needs to
definitely come down.
what would we bring it down to? Maybe 20,000?
I would say 20.
Thank you.
Ms. Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
the land and land improvement, can you explain that one?
Sure. So this is just in case, and I don't know what, this is my first year, so I don't know what the city has plans. I don't know what the direction the mayor is looking at. I don't know where the talks of the committees, where they're at with all of that. So this is just in case. It's budgeted just in case we actually do want to acquire a piece of property. I do know that you all have gotten some properties before, so that's what that is.
Gotcha. Council, any more question on the
Now, because
miscellaneous?
it's budgeted, doesn't mean that it has to be used. So,
So it also says land improvement, not just,
So if we own property, we
And
probably
so-
need to, yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Sixteen.
So, for example, like, the building, whatever council decides to do with the building, like, we have to do something with that building over there regardless, even if we just tear it down.
It's still gonna cost us 50.
Yeah, this is give us a groundwork for that. She didn't just pull it out of the sky. I just was kind of giving some ideas. We will have to do something with that building in 2025. And I guarantee you $150,000 is not enough.
At all.
But that will get us like the right quotes, the right, not quotes, but whatever we need as a groundwork to give you the right information. Again, if you want to take that out, that's fine. But at the end of the day, something has to be done.
No, I wasn't saying take it out. I was just asking for the explanation of it so that it would, because I saw that it went from 286 to 150, so I wanted to clarify it faster before anyone else pulled it out, so we can
And
move
I don't
forward.
know if this is also something, I mean, you guys have given Ms. Chamberlain the latitude to look into it. The city administrator, I was going to do the same, just to look into it, to bring you back the information that you need to make a good decision.
Yes.
I don't have any issue coming to you, even if to talk about before I spend or whatever. I don't have any issue coming to council and being accountable that way.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
I wanted to thank you, Ms. Dusting. I did actually wanted to reach out to you and see if you can actually finish that up for me, because Ms. Chamberlain left but without giving me any information on my motion. Do you remember my motion?
Yeah.
I do remember the motion, and it was it falls on the burden of this position to do that.
All right. Well, thank you.
But I wasn't
appreciate it.
gonna touch it before the end of the year because we have so many action items.
Right.
And again, I don't have any issue coming to you guys ahead of time and being very transparent about whatever is concerning that. This is definitely a decision that administration and council needs to make together.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, Ms. Anderson.
Doing a little looking right now, because I think the next one is a duplicate.
Waste collection,
The 230 is a duplicate.
okay.
I don't have any other, I don't have anything else.
So, I'm sorry,
Yes, Ms. Sixteen.
Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson and I will work on those changes and send out everything that we talked about, tomorrow. We can get that out
Yes.
tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And then send it out to you all. If you have any questions or further supports, you can just email us and we'll get them back out. But our turnaround time for this and the updates is tomorrow.
Yep. All of council hear that? If she said had any questions, comments, or concerns, send her email. All right. That concludes our 2025 budget review. Ooh, look at that. Right on my time. All right, next agenda item is the cleanup ordinance.
So I ran a report on all of the fund balances. So what you want to see happen going over into the next budget year is that you don't want to see any negative line items. And if you can clean up the budget by transferring that, I do have the authority to do, is to make transfers within the fund. So anything that's outside of the fund, I would have to come before council for approval. An example would be if I was moving anything from 201 to 230. I can't do that without council approval. So we had some negative line items. However, it did not deplete the fund. So the only time I need to actually come for a cleanup ordinance is when the fund itself is depleted. And the only instance that I found where the fund was depleted was on 2 occasions. And that was within the street fund, and that was also within the waste collection fund. So this cleanup ordinance acts as an appropriation ordinance. They are pretty much one and the same. I'm asking you to increase fund number 201 by $86,855.37. That's so that all fund lines will be in the positive. And the only thing that that means is when this fund, when the street department uses their, which the budget is a guideline, just simply a guideline. So on a particular line, he may have gone over, and we did not come back for appropriations. So in 2025, you'll see us coming back for appropriations quarterly, so that we don't get to this point at the end of the year. So within the fund, we were able to make the fund whole by making those transfers, but this is what this still ended up being negative by that amount. The same with waste collection. And so I break it down to show you where those funds are lacking and where we actually went over budget on those lines. So we will be asking for, and again, it's only because no one was coming before you regularly to say that we're close, and we need to, we're getting close, and we need to do something about it. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Dukes.
historically, we have always done a huge lump sum of cleanup at the end of the year to adjust on things that were under budgeted for or misapplied. I'm hoping to not do that again, to kind of come and make it more visible as to where we are with the monthly statements, and then see, but for this year, we're in that loophole of having to clean up on a larger scale.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Stewart.
So I have a huge concern with this waste collection. I know that when Mr. Mosby was here, he had discovered that we were not, and I might be using the wrong terminology, somewhere along the line, the residents were not being charged enough and so the city was footing the bill for some of the waste. It looks like if we're $186,000 short, is that happening again? Like, do we have to adjust that Rumpke bill to the citizens? Because that needs to be done sooner than later.
Ms. Zorb, I will take a look at that. So I don't know if you remember when we had interim Chief Sharan and interim Chief Fells, right as Mr. Mosby was leaving and coming in, they did that Rumpke contract that year. And so it could be very well that. And so that's on my to-do list ASAP to look into, to come up with some better numbers. Ms. Chamberlain did take a look into it when she was here. I don't know if she did the portion where the community was paying, looking at what they were paying, but I don't know if she knew to either. So the contract has been extended 1 year, which gives me an opportunity to look at it, and we don't have to walk in that extension if we have an opportunity to negotiate sooner. But I'm definitely, this is on my to-do list to look at ASAP, because you might be right there. But there's nothing we can do about it now because we didn't know that it was, if it is that, but what I can do is look into it, come back and say what it is, and try to get into something better forward.
May I ask also where it says it's reimbursement hyphen cycling incentive, should that be recycling incentive? And is that money back to us? I don't know about any bicycling incentive, so that's why I'm thinking that maybe that's recycling incentive.
I'm done with you. I'm sure it's a typo of recycling incentive.
I can put my bike in the bin.
So all of these are appropriations. None of those are revenues, except for the last one where you see where it says increase, decrease. So we're asking that one be decreased. But the other ones are, if it's an increase, then that means that we spent it out, and we spent too much.
She's asking what it is, the
What is the
cycling.
$4,262.99.
Ms. Clear could give you more information on that, but
gone.
she's gone.
Madam Chair, is this what she was talking about during her report?
Yep.
Okay.
I think
so that's what that-
I don't want to speak for her, but I was thinking the same. We're on the same page
Yeah,
on that.
I think the confusion is the fact that it says cycling
Instead
incentive.
of recycling.
So I think it
waste.
is the recycling that she's referring to, and she said that depending on the percentage of people who participate in the recycling, we get a
Yep.
kickback.
You do.
It does say reimbursement cycling incentive on her line item as well, so that could be why she put cycling incentive, because it says that on hers too.
Okay, so it's just a typo.
Yes, I'm sure.
But there's other ramifications to that. So if this is a reimbursement, why do we have to put $4,000 more into something that somebody's reimbursing us for?
That's a good
So
question.
that's a different line, so,
I'm looking at your
I know.
cleanup ordinance.
So when you have a reimbursement, I don't know why this is as an expense, but you have a revenue account and then you have an expense account. This is an expense account. She can explain to you why it says reimbursement. I don't really know what that terminology means in terms of an expense. But I do know that this is an expense. It's not a revenue.
Yeah. They all add up.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Mayor.
in some instances, I think we have to spend a certain amount
Mm-hmm.
before we are reimbursed. So sometimes you have to spend and then they reimburse us. But I'm not sure in this particular.
Now that you say that, actually, I'm sorry, Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Luthien.
she's actually right. So I spent time talking to Ms. Clear, and she did mention that Mayor is correct. But it doesn't, just because when we spend out of it and then we are reimbursed, they're not always synonymous.
They don't reimburse us at 100%
Yes.
all the time, depending on how many people are in. Because
Participate.
some people could
Yes.
participate for December and not as many in January, November.
Well, it averages out over the year.
Right.
So, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
So it may not have been reimbursed to the amount that we spent out of it, so it left it negative, where in the past, what was projected, in 2023, it may have leveled out. We may have had participation or lack thereof to not cause our reimbursement to be equivalent or even.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry, I
looking
just
at
don't
it.
have enough history on it to give you an elaborate explanation
No,
right
that's
now.
fine. I'm looking at her line item of it, and it
Follow
makes.
up with Ms.
Yeah.
Clear. I'm sure she will quantify
Understand.
that, what I
Cycle.
just said, because I'm almost positive that's it. It's just trying to recall all the conversations at once in such a short time.
That's understandable. Council, any more questions or any comments, concerns on the cleanup ordinance? All right. Look at us staying on time, or not on time, on extra overtime. Let's go into executive session to discuss the salary ordinance.
Still doing that tonight?
Yes, we have to get these things done. We agreed when we said we would continue on, that we were here and we would get the next two items done.
Okay. I didn't mean all that.
Hey, we gotta do that whole pursuant to all that.
That's during council, this committee, we don't have to do that during committee.
Yes, we do.
Do you do? Jesus,
Into
man.
executive session. Executive
I'd rather
session's
be-
executive session.
I'd rather be safe than sue. Let me, I can look it up for you.
Please, I don't have Mike's, I could pull it up on my, get my flash up.
Cheat sheet of it.
I'm looking for the language.
Me
Mi-
too.
Ms. Zork, do you have
I
it?
used to have a cheat
Ms.
sheet.
Zord, do you-
I'm sure
that
most-
That's not what I'm looking for.
Okay,
All right, we gonna say we getting a, let's see.
what'd you say?
We just gonna say we gonna.
We can't. Oh, that's not number 4, but.
See ya. Thanks.
All right. I think I got it.
Go for it, Mr. Davis.
Okay, executive session pursuant to section 12122, public meetings exceptions, and now. To consider the compensation of a public employee or official, or this is just a compensation one. This isn't an investigation one, correct? To consider the compensation of a public employee or official unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated official request a public hearing. That's the correct one, correct?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it? That's all of it? Okay. It seemed longer than that.
It is longer.
That's what I thought.
I did a whole, because we wasn't considering
Ain't you?
termination and all those other things.
You have to read the whole thing.
You still
I
gotta
have to
read the whole thing.
Oh, my bad. Hold up.
Enjoy.
I had a whole paper on it.
Okay.
Cheat sheet on it. I don't know.
Once again, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated official, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual requested public hearing. I'm good there, keep going.
You have to say the whole thing. Did you say the whole thing?
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Appreciate it, sir.
I only started once.
I thought Ms. Zorb knew it by heart.
So I think Mr.
No,
Henry.
brain cells.